Welcome to the Brain Picker Pro Show, live from Lake Wiley, South Carolina. This is Larry Goins. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate that. And be sure and share. Be sure and leave us some feedback, some comments. We really appreciate that as well. We always try to bring you the best of the rest. And today is no exception. I'm very excited. We've been trying to get this gentleman on for weeks. I'm telling you, he is so busy. He's booked. He's a mover. He's a shaker. He's on several multi-million-dollar businesses and single-family, multifamily. This guy does it. I don't even know how he does it. He's busier than I was a while back, right? So please give a warm welcome to Rod Khleif. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on the show. This is going to be a lot of fun today.
Man, I'm really excited you're here. Why don't you just start out and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about who is Rod Khleif?
Sure. Well, I'm going to go back a ways just to give some context because it's relevant. So I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my mother, Svancha, and my brother, Albert. And we actually came across on a big ship. We ended up in New York Harbor. And I remember my mom crying when she saw the Statue of Liberty. And then we ended up in Denver, Colorado, where I lived the next 30 years. And we didn't have much. I had to wear clothes from the Goodwill and Salvation Army through junior high school. You know, my mom had to buy expired food, and, you know, we drank powdered milk because that's all we could afford. Now, I'm sure some of your listeners had it harder than we did, but I knew I wanted more. And, you know, my mom had an incredible work ethic. She babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with the babysitting money, she bought the house across the street from us when I was 14 years old for approximately $30,000. And when I was about to graduate from high school, a couple years later, she told me that, actually when I was 17, she told me that it had gone up $20,000. And I'm like, what? I'm getting into real estate. And I got super excited, and I was going to be a real estate tycoon. And I got my real estate broker's license when I turned 18. You could do that with education. Now you've got to have some experience. But I became a broker right when I turned 18. You know, made about $8,000 my first year, maybe made about $10,000 my second year. But my third year, I made well over $100,000. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3? And I think that story is going to add value to your listeners, Larry, because, you know, what I've discovered and what it was I met a guy that taught me about the psychology of success, taught me that 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and your psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the real estate. It's the real estate, you know, the mechanical information. And so, you know, and fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've owned that I rented out. They were buy and hold. These aren't flips. I did some flipping and wholesaling as well, as I'm sure your audience can resonate with. But these were buy and hold. And I've also owned apartment complexes. And so in 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you know, it's funny when you have big success like that. You know, I did the math on that. It's like over $8,000 an hour over the year, and you get a big head, and you know, I thought I was a real estate god, and you know, whenever that happens, God or the universe or whatever you believe will give you a smackdown. Well, that was 2008 for me. I got my butt handed to me. I lost $50 million, and I call it a seminar. I don't call them failures. It's only a failure if you don't grow and you don't move past it. But it was a very painful seminar. And so, you know, a lot of times, if you're interested, I can tell your listeners what it took to get past losing everything. I mean, I thought I was set for life. I thought 80 million baby boomers getting old and getting cold. I owned 800 houses here in Florida. I owned multiple apartment complexes, and it all crashed and burned. And so, you know, I can speak to why it crashed as well, but as importantly, and I think it'll add value to your listeners if you'll humor me, is I can speak to how I got past it.
Sure, absolutely.
Should I do that? All right. So let me tell you why it crashed, okay? The reason I crashed was because my 800 houses were spread out 2 hours north and 2 hours south of me and everywhere in between. So the logistics were a real challenge, and I'll speak to why that's a big deal in a second. But the other big thing is, in Florida, we have no state income tax, so property taxes are very high. And I was along the coast, so I had a lot of properties with flood and wind insurance, which is very high, all of which impacts cash flow. And the name of the game is cash flow. And so in fact, that's the subtitle of my book, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, i.e. the new rules being values out the window, focus on cash flow. But what was interesting is, while I was losing everything, my single family is what pulled me down. And again, I'll continue to explain why in a second, but my multifamily did just fine. So let me give you an example. So let's say I had a house that was an hour north of me, and they had a maintenance issue. If I send a maintenance man to one of my apartments, there we would have, everything's the same. We'd have stockpile parts for the plumbing and the HVAC and the appliances, and they could get in and out in an hour, okay? If I send a maintenance guy to one of my houses, everything's different. So they'd have to drive an hour to get to the house. Then they'd have to see what was wrong. Then they'd have to go find a hardware store, a Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever, and buy parts. Then they'd come back, and very often, if you've ever done do-it-yourself fixing, you realize you missed something, you got to go back again. And what would take an hour in an apartment complex takes all day at a house. And you multiply that times 800, and it just, the model didn't cash flow well, even though I was only at a 30% loan to value in 06, 30%. So I still didn't quite cash flow because of the logistics, the taxes, and the insurance. So that's why I plummeted. Now let's talk about how I pulled out of it, okay? So again, I spoke to, and I teach my students this, I teach this in my live events, is that mindset is 80 to 90% of your success in anything. You've got to be willing to push through the fear. You've got to be willing to get uncomfortable to create that life. So in fact, let me speak to, and let me, if you'll, again, humor me, I'll speak to what I teach my students as it relates to goal setting and how I use visualization to get what I want. It'll take just a few minutes. Should I do that, Larry?
Absolutely. Please share it.
All right. So what I do, and if, guys, if you're listening, get a pen and paper and take some notes, because I don't do goal setting like most people do goal setting. So what I do is I want you to pick an hour when you've got a lot of time. I'm sorry, when you've got a lot of energy. Forgive me, a lot of energy. And make sure you're not going to be distracted. Make sure you're well hydrated. And I want you to sit down and write down everything you could ever possibly want in life, okay? Write down the big stuff. You want the houses in other countries or states or whatever. I want a farm in Tennessee. Write down the houses. Write down the cars, the boats, the jet skis, the planes, the stuff. Write down all the stuff, okay? Everything you could ever want, big things, little things, and write down, how much money do you want in the bank, in a year? How much money do you want in the bank when you're retiring? What kind of cash flow do you want in a year? What kind of cash flow do you want when you're retiring? And just don't let the pen leave the paper. If you're analytical, analyze it later. Just keep writing until you can scratch it out later, but keep writing until you can't think of another thing. And then once you're done there, I want you to take it a couple steps further. I want you to write down what you want to learn in your lifetime. I want to learn how to fly a helicopter. I've never gone skydiving, and I got roped into it. And Tuesday I'm going skydiving for the first time. What do you want to learn? I want to learn how to play the drums. My wife bought me a drum set. It's been 2 years now, and I still don't know what end of the stick to use, but I am going to learn how to play when I have some time. So what do you want to learn? Maybe a foreign language. What do you want to do as well? Maybe write a book. My book is going on Amazon here in a couple weeks. By the way, your listeners can get a free copy if they want, Larry. If they text my name, Rod, to 41411, we'll give them a free copy. It's 200 pages. It's going to be $25 on Amazon, but they can get it for free. But what do you want to do? So then lastly, and as important as any of the rest of this, who do you want to help? Write down who you want to help. Okay. Me, I wanted to, I bought my parents a house here in Port Charlotte, Florida. I bought them a car. I took them on cruises. Who in your family do you want to help? Maybe you want to help the community. Write down. So it's not just the stuff. It's everything you want to do, be, or have. Okay. And then once you can't think of another thing, there's a couple more steps. Once you stop writing, I want you, it's not a goal. or real until it's measurable. I want you to put a number by each goal as to how many years it's going to take you to achieve it. Okay, put a 1, a 3, a 5, even a 10, even a 20. But remembering that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can accomplish in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in a decade. So put a number by each goal and don't overthink it. Just guess, how long it's going to take you to achieve each one of these goals. Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to pick your number one goal, the juiciest goal that if you got it, it would be like, oh my God, this is so freaking amazing. That goal. Write that one down. Now, if you've got several that are equally exciting, just pick one because it won't matter for what we're going to do next. Then I want you to pick your top 3 one-year goals, okay? Take those 4 goals, your number one juicy goal and your top 3 one-year goals, and put them on a separate sheet of paper. And frankly, this is where most people stop. In fact, most people don't even get this far. People spend more time planning Christmas or a birthday party than they do designing their lives, Larry. And that's what I'm talking about here is designing your life. And, and the simple act of writing down your goals is incredibly powerful. There's this sequence in your brain called the reticular activating system, the RAS, or reticular activating system. And it's that filter in your brain where it filters out what it thinks is important to you. And a great example of it, probably the best example I can think of, is when you first buy a car. You buy that car and you never really noticed them before, but when you buy it, they're everywhere. You see them everywhere. And they were there before, you just didn't notice them. So that's a great example. And that's why writing down your goals is so powerful to start that process. Now, the next thing that you do is the goal is important, but why that goal is an absolute must is critical. So you're going to write down a paragraph under each one of those goals, why it's an absolute must for you to achieve it. You're going to put things like, so I can show my family what success looks like, my wife or my husband what success looks like, so we can do whatever we want, wherever we want, whenever we want, with whoever we want. Whatever it is for you, write it down. And use, words are very powerful. Use emotionally charged words to describe the why, okay? And then and then put the positive reasons why, but also put some negative reasons why. If you don't achieve the goal, what's going to happen? Put some pain in there so that I don't feel like a failure if I don't achieve this goal. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but as human beings, we will do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. Put some pain in there if you don't achieve the goal. So I don't, fail my children. So I don't live a life of regret. So, so I'm not a failure. Again, make it painful because this is the fuel. This is what will push you to get out, to push through limiting beliefs that you may have or fear that you may have, or even worse, to get uncomfortable. Because, a lot of people have a comfortable job, but they know they want more. And, a comfort zone is a warm place, but nothing grows there. Okay, and so you got to have the fuel to get past the comfort and the fear and all that. So this is the fuel, the why. So once you've got the positive and negative reasons why, there's one more step, and that is utilize the power of visualization. So let me give you some examples of when I've used visualization in the past, and it'll help your listeners. So when I was 18 and I got my broker's license, I was going to make a fortune selling real estate, and I bought this, and I had to buy a 4-door car because you needed a 4-door car to show houses to prospective purchasers. So I bought this bone ugly Ford 4-door Granada. Okay, it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen, and but that's what I thought you needed. And one of the guys I worked with had a Corvette, and he let me drive it, and that's really important, that experiential piece. If there's something you want, go experience, go test drive the car, go see the open, go look at a showing of the house, go do everything you can to make it experiential. So I drove that car, and what I did was, this is way before you could even spell internet, I went in a magazine and I got a picture of a Corvette. I put it on the visor of this bone ugly Granada, and within a year I had this beautiful red Corvette. Now, I want to give you some other examples, but I want to pre-frame this by telling you and your listeners that this is not me bragging. This is just me giving you examples. All I can do is share some examples with you of the power of this. The things that I'm going to share with you now don't even interest me anymore, but they're great for illustrative purposes. So this is back in the time when the TV show Magnum PI was around, okay? And the actor is Tom Selleck, and he drove this gorgeous red Ferrari 308. And I saw that, and I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And so I got a picture of that actual car, and I put that on the visor of my Corvette. And within a year or two, I had a Maserati look just like it. Last example. I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini, okay? I mean, I remember having posters of the Lamborghini Countach in my bedroom, you know, with the bikini girls and the car washing, and yeah, that was me. I had all that stuff. And what's interesting is my son actually collected models when he was 9 years old, exotic cars. He had about 30 of them, and he had a model of the exact same color and style Lamborghini that I ended up getting. Which I wrecked ultimately, but anyway, you know, so the last example I'll give you is I always wanted to live on the beach, and I lived in Denver, and there's no beach in Denver, and I knew I wanted to live on the beach for 20 years. I wanted this, okay, and so you know, I had pictures of palm trees, and you know, I'd think about it all the time. I'd visualize walking on the beach, and I made it happen. I built this incredible 10,000 square foot, $8 million mansion on the beach. I mean, it was spectacular. Waterfall from the second floor into the pool. You had the beach on one side. I had my boathouses on the back side, elevator, wine cellar. I could go on and on. I mean, just spectacular home. And so the last thing in the goal setting is get pictures. In fact, I'll show you something here. I've got a planner, and I know this will be on iTunes, but it's also videoed. In the back of this planner, I've got pictures that have been in here for 20 years. I'm not exaggerating, 20 years. Now, the first pictures are my gratitude pictures. They're my kids when they were very young, you know, because everything starts from a place of gratitude, okay? Gratitude's foundational. So I've got my gratitude pictures in here. Then I've got pictures of the things that I wanted, the houses. And what's astounding is that these pictures look just like what I got. Like, I live in a compound now that's spectacular. I mean, 6 buildings. It's on the bay. It's like a park. It's 2 acres. And because God's got a sense of humor, I can see my old house across the bay that I lost in the 2008 debacle. But you know, I've got pictures, but the pictures work. Okay, watches. I got a couple $100,000 worth of watches. Stupid shit that I don't care about anymore. The Lamborghini before I ever got it. You know, the Rolls Royce. All this stuff that I got because I had pictures. So get pictures, guys. Put them around you. If you look in my office here, you'll see the pictures of the things that I want now. Okay, and so get pictures because they work. And then, you know, even if they're just, you know, put them on your screensaver, put them on your wall, put them in your planner. Like I have them in my planner here. I've had for 20 years. They're dog-eared, but this stuff works, guys. And you know, I may have lost some of your analytical listeners, Larry, but you know, that's how I got past the crash in 2008. Is I remember to focus on what I wanted and why I wanted it. And you know, it's so easy when we're going through hell to focus on the negative, you know, and like Winston Churchill says, when you're going through hell, keep going. But the bottom line is where focus goes, energy flows, and you need to make sure you redirect your focus to what you want, not what you don't want. Let me give you a couple other great examples of visualization, just so you don't listen just to my story. A good one would be Walt Disney. When Epcot Center was built, Walt Disney had already died. And Roy Disney, his brother, was there at the grand opening, and a reporter went up to Roy and said, you know, it's a shame that Walt didn't get to see this. And Roy looked at him and said, the only reason you're seeing this is because Walt saw this, okay? And, you know, another great example is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, when he was flat broke, wrote himself a check for $10 million that he put in his wallet. And he would go up by the Hollywood sign, flat broke, pull this thing out and look at it. And that's about how much he got for Dumb and Dumber. And, you know, so anything great that's ever been accomplished has been visualized. So use that, you know, use that to get what you want, guys. Very, very powerful.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really good. You know, I mean, you went through step by step by step. And I really do believe that the very first step is you got to make a list of everything you want to be, do, and have, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to do that. You've got to do that. And the key there, you said, don't put any limitations on it. Think big. right?
Right.
Some
Right.
people, I mean, they want to help other people as well. So start a foundation. I mean, you've got a great foundation where you help a lot of
Yeah,
people.
in fact, let me speak to that for a second because it ties into the goal setting. I'm really glad you brought that up. I forgot to mention it. Let me share something. I built that house on the beach, okay? And I spent 20 years to do this, okay? So 2 months after I moved in, my family's sleeping inside. I'm outside in the pool, and this pool was in magazines. I mean, it changing colors at night. There's a waterfall from the second floor into the pool, waterfall from the spawn of the pool, trees that I bought that bent out over the pool. And I'm in this pool at night. It's warm. My family's inside sleeping. 2 months after I built the house, and I got depressed. And I don't mean just felt bad. I mean, I was freaking depressed. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I just achieved success by any measure, incredible success, and I'm feeling bad.
Right.
And when I look back on it, I realized there were two things happening. One was you should, and this is why I want to share this on this goal setting conversation, you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Because like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for the future. You need a compelling vision. So that was number one. But the second thing was I went out and bought a bunch of books. I was like, you know what? I'll beat this. I'm not going to be depressed. So I got Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins and Tony Robbins. And, I started reading these books, Dale Carnegie, of course. But I read about half of Tony's book. And I'm like, man, this guy sounds sharp. So I went to one of his events, and I spent 20 years now following him around the planet. I mean, if you ever have an opportunity, let me give him a shout out. If you ever have an opportunity to see him speak, just do it. Trust me. I have no secondary gain by telling you that. Just do it. But I went to one of his events, and I found out that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, that's really cool. So I went home. This is like 2000 or 1999, like 20 years ago. And I said, you know what? I'm going to feed 5 families. So my brother and I, we went out and shopped, and we fed 5 families for Thanksgiving. We got frozen turkeys. We got food, big baskets of food. We got toys for the kids, and we went to a church and we said, hey, who really needs help? And so we delivered the food to these families. The third family changed my life, Larry. I go up to this door, and I don't know if any of you know what a shotgun house is. A shotgun is it's like a row house. You walk into the living room, you walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which has the bathroom off of it. Okay, like it's a 1 bedroom, but it's a crappy 1 bedroom because you got to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen.
Right.
Well, there was a lady living in this place with 5 kids. So she comes out. And this was actually in Denver. I did this in Denver with my brother. I did do it in Florida now, but she comes out. And she sees the food and starts crying. Her kids come out. Some of them start crying. I start crying, and I'm hooked. And now I'm blessed to say, Larry, that in the last 19 years, we've fed 65,000 children here in Sarasota with baskets of food. We do it for Christmas now. I've done over 10,000 backpacks filled with school supplies. I've done over 10,000 teddy bears to give the local police departments for their officers to keep in their cars if they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic event. And it has been my greatest joy in life because there is a difference, and this is from Tony Robbins. There is a difference between fulfillment and success. Tony calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. I was successful, but I was unfulfilled because it was all about rod. How can I show the world I'm good enough? Built this monster house to prove to the world I'm good enough. That's really what it was when you boil it down. I was totally focused on me. And so, guys, those of you listening, I want to encourage you. And I've interviewed people on my show. I've got, one of the top-ranked podcasts in the world on real estate with, we're hitting 6 million downloads. And I've interviewed billionaires on that show, mega millionaires that are successful, but you can tell they're where I was. They're unfulfilled because they're focused on themselves. And so my invitation to you listening is find a way to give back in some fashion. I don't care if you do one family, or you help an elderly person, or you help a child, or you help the community in some fashion. Do something to give back, because success without that is not success.
That's so true. I've heard many people say the best way to defeat depression is to go help somebody else. Find somebody that's worse off than you are and focus on them, because when you're depressed, you're focusing on yourself, right?
That's absolutely right, buddy. I've said that's absolutely right. Well said. Yes, for sure. Frankly, you want anything, give it. You want love, give love. You want happiness, give happiness. But if you are depressed, you are focused on yourself. And like I said, back then, that's all I was focused on was Rob. At the expense of my family, at the expense of my children. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating to me to even talk about it. But, I felt like that's what I had to do to prove myself. And I lost a lot of things because of it. And so those of you listening, like I said, success without that is not success.
That's huge, man. That's huge. And I love how even though you have a vision board, that you have everything that you want to accomplish and have accomplished in the past, it starts out with gratitude pictures. I love that.
Yeah, I've actually got vision boards. They're behind me. I can't get them right, but they're back there that I look at every day. I've got a gratitude vision board. I've got, and then I've got vision boards for the things that I want to do now. And let me share one last thing with your listeners, and that is I do this thing in the morning. Any successful person I've ever met or interviewed has a morning ritual of some sort. And Hal Elrod wrote a great book about this called The Miracle Morning. I was blessed to have him on my show.
Great book.
Yeah, great book. But basically, you need to set your day off right. And so what I do in the morning, and this is real simple, is I just do gratitude for a short while. I'm grateful for my beautiful wife, my incredible home I live in now, my coaching students, my friends, my family, my foundation. And I just do gratitude for a few minutes. Sometimes I do this in bed. Sometimes I'll sit in this recliner that's behind me here. You can't see. But so I just do gratitude. But then what I do is I do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And just say, thank you, God, for the things that I want as if I already have them. You call it prayer, you call it whatever you want. But guys, trust me, it works, okay? It triggers that reticular activating system to bring these things into your life. Gratitude is so powerful. I've done it where I've even got emotional while I'm doing gratitude about things. And so use that power. And then the last thing I do is I just make a declaration, sometimes verbally, sometimes in my head, that it's going to be an awesome day. And it almost always is. So.
That's great. I love that. I've always said that the first hour is the rudder of the day. It determines what's going to happen during that day. And I love that. So, Rob, what are some of your favorite books out there? I know you're very well read. You read a lot.
Thank you.
What would you say is your favorite book or some of your favorite books?
Sure. Well, I got to start by saying, get my free book because that's a no-brainer. It's free. The price is right. It's 200 pages, like a textbook for multifamily investing. You just text Rod to 41411. But my love language is gifts. There's a book called The 5 Languages of Love. So my coaching students get books all the time from me because it's the way I show love. So some of the ones that I gift them are, of course, Think and Grow Rich. Okay, that's a no-brainer. That's one you should read several times a year. The Slight Edge, about making that the small decisions in your life can have huge impact in your life. Turning pro, making a decision to not be an amateur but become a professional is another one. Of course, anything by Dale Carnegie is fantastic. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a no-brainer. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits is fantastic. Anything about leadership from John Maxwell is fantastic. And I could go on and on. I didn't go to college. I wanted to make money. I wanted to prove to the world, like I said, I was good enough. And so I went right into business. But I am very well read. I've got thousands of books in my library in one of the other buildings here in my compound. And I like to tell people I've got a PhD in results. but I never went to college, and I'm not. If you're listening, do not use that as an excuse not to go. Okay, my son used that on me, but no, you definitely should go because if nothing else, just for the social component and the growth component. But I actually regret not going, believe it or not. But I love to read, like you said.
That's good, man. That's good. I feel the same way. I didn't go to college. My son's going to go to college, but I didn't get to go. I didn't have the money or the grades to be able to go. But I was like you. I wanted to get out and do my own thing, right? And but they can't use that as an excuse, Right. But some people are great with a formal education, and some people go through the school of hard knocks like we did, right?
Well, you and I are hustlers, buddy. You got to have that work ethic and the desire to learn. Learning is earning. I remember my son when he was 9 years old coming up to me in this mansion, like I said, that testament to my ego that I built, house, and And I told him, I'm going to be gone this weekend, buddy. I owned 800 houses at that point. I owned several apartment complexes. I said, I'm going to a real estate seminar. And he's like, what? He said, why are you going to a real estate seminar? You should teach it, Dad. I said, buddy, because we're always learning. We're always growing. And so I do, several seminars a year. By the way, I do live events. If any of your students are interested, it's multifamilybootcamp.com. Love to have you check it out. I do 3 a year, and they always sell out. And it's just me training for 3 days. I don't bring in a bunch of speakers to sell stuff like a lot of the guys do. It's just me. And it's hard. It's hard on this 60-year-old body for 3 full days, but I do love it. And we've got one coming up in Denver with, we could easily hit 800 people. So it's a lot of fun. Really love it.
That's great. That's really good.
And I've got my podcast as well. So, if your listeners have any interest in multifamily, please check it out. It's called Lifetime Cash Flow. It's I'm doing something right because I'm about to hit 6 million downloads. And one of the things I do on that is I do an episode every week about mindset. Okay. So they're only 5 to 8 minutes. I call them Own Your Power. And so like this week, I'm doing the power of creativity. And you're thinking, well, what's creativity have to do with real estate? Well, a lot. Creative, like you use creative ways to do marketing, creative ways to talk to sellers, creative ways to negotiate, creative ways to, build a team and all these other things. Creativity does come into play. So I do those every week on the podcast as well. And they're really well received. And then I interview an expert like you do here on your show, buddy. So I do 2 episodes a week.
That's great, man. Rod, I really, really appreciate you sharing. I mean, anybody can go out there and learn how to do real estate, right? There's all kind of training, education, all that. But, the biggest thing that I see people struggle with is the mindset portion of it, right? A lot of people don't feel like they even deserve to be successful.
That's exactly right.
Because of limiting belief.
Right. Or parents have said, money doesn't grow on trees, the rich are evil, they've got these subconscious. Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up. You're right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Rod, anybody listening to this, they could go check you out, your website,
my website has tons of free material, the rodkhleif.com website, Khleif. I've got tons of videos, articles, books, everything's free. Lots of great content to help you. I have the belief system, you add as much value as you can, it comes back to you tenfold, and it's proven itself for me. So tons of value there. That's great.
Buddy, I really appreciate you being on. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been an awesome interview. I really appreciate that. Great content, great information. And look, I've got 2 pages of notes right here, right?
Oh, thanks, brother. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that very much. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, my friend. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, buddy. See you.